In this video, I want to share with you the 6 places my money goes every time I get paid. In this system will work whether you make $20 an hour or 6 figures per year. Because by the end of this video, you'll learn how to automate your finances to keep you from working for 20, 30, or even 40 years with nothing to show for it. By the way, if you're new here, my name's Brian. I'm a former investment banker with a Master of Science in Finance, and my goal is to help you become your own Master of Finance. So starting with number 1, and that is to contribute to our 401k account for retirement. This is an account that's offered by employers, and typically they come with an employer match. The employer match is a program where your employer will typically agree to match you dollar for dollar for any amount that you contribute up to a certain amount. In 2025, the average employer match is around 5%, though it can vary somewhere between 3 and 6%. This is essentially free money that's being offered by your employer to help fund your retirement, and every year you go without meeting this employer match is a year that you give up that free money. Now, unfortunately, 401ks aren't as popular as they probably should be, and I can sympathize with many people who don't want to contribute to their 401k because I myself did not contribute for the first few years of my career. But I want to give you an example of why the 401k is so important that it is the first thing I do with my money every time I get paid. Let's say that you're earning the median household income, which is currently $83,730 per year, and you have the average employer match of 5%. If they match you dollar for dollar, this means that you'll contribute about $4,186.50 per year to get that match, and your employer will put that same exact amount into your 401k alongside you. Assuming that you invest in a broad stock market mutual fund that earns around 8% per year, then after 30 years contributing this amount per year, you would have over $1 million. And the question I ask myself is, do I think I can do better than this by not contributing to my retirement account? Because this is the opportunity cost. By not investing in a 401k, I'm potentially costing myself over $1 million when it comes time to retire. So for that reason, I make sure that at least 5 to 10% of my paycheck goes into my 401k every time I get paid. Now, the next place our money should go is into a checking account, and I know this is relatively straightforward, but there are a few nuances here that are going to help everything else fall into place. The first one is that when it comes to managing my finances, I value simplicity over complexity. The first way I do this is by making sure as many of my accounts as possible are all with the same bank. Now, the bank you choose doesn't really matter all that much. I bank with JP Chase, but I originally started with Wells Fargo, and I chose them because they had a lot of ATMs around where I lived. The next way I keep my finances simple with a checking account is to automate as much as possible. So that includes having direct deposit, so my money goes straight from my employer into my bank account, as well as automating all of my bill payments. This includes any debt payments like credit cards, mortgages, auto loans, as well as utilities. And my pro tip is I make sure as many of my bills as possible line up on the same days that my paycheck hits my account. You see, what happens to most people is we have all these different due dates for bills and subscriptions and other expenses, and what ends up happening is we get our paycheck on the 1st or the 15th of the month, and it feels like every other day of the month money is coming out of our account, and it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. This made it really hard to plan expenses. I felt like I didn't know where my money was going, and sometimes I even ran into situations where my checking account would get overdrafted. So one of the best things I did for my finances was to organize those due dates so as many of them as possible fall on the same days that I get paid. This means that within 1 to 2 days after my paycheck hits my account and those bills get paid, I know exactly how much money I have to work with for the next 1 to 2 weeks. And doing this is a lot less complicated than you might think. A lot of banks allow you to just go onto their online portal, and within a few clicks, you can request a new due date for your credit card. When it comes to other loans, like mortgages and auto loans, you typically get to choose the due date when you first make the loan, and sometimes you can contact the bank and ask them if they'll do the same thing. And with subscription services, you can either call customer service and ask if they'll change your billing date, or you can cancel the service and renew on the date that you want. Speaking of paying expenses, the next place our money should go to are to our needs. These should represent about 50% of your take-home pay. If they're higher than that, then you may want to reevaluate and see if there are any ways to reduce some of those costs. For example, finding more competitive insurance rates, or maybe a lower cost living situation, or trying to improve your income, either through a side hustle or for asking a raise at work. You'll also want to make sure that you're not including anything that isn't really a need. Some examples include gym memberships, food delivery, streaming services, and cable TV. What's nice is that once you've figured out the cost of your total needs, this amount typically doesn't change month to month. So one thing you can do is to set an automatic transfer of that amount into a separate checking or savings account to make sure that you've set aside enough money for your needs every time your paycheck hits. Once our needs are covered, the fourth place our money should be going is towards building up an emergency fund. This is a dedicated pool of money that you don't touch unless you're in an absolute emergency, which could include losing your job or having a major health event. A good amount to have in this emergency fund is anywhere from 3 to 6 or even 12 months of living expenses. Now, 3 to 6 months of living expenses might mean needing to save tens of thousands of dollars, which can feel daunting if you're starting from zero. In this case, I would first set a smaller goal of around $1,000, and then once I've hit that $1,000 goal, then I'd set a goal for $2,500, then $5,000, then $10,000, and so on until we have 3 to 6 to 12 months saved up in our emergency savings. I'll also be making a video later this week with practical tips on how to save $10,000 as quickly as possible. So if you don't want to miss that video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So the fifth place our money should go every time we get paid is paying off high interest debt, and this is primarily going to be credit cards. This is very important because credit cards have interest rates as high as 30%. Making a relatively small balance like a few thousand or $10,000 something that seems like it never goes away. So after we've covered our basic necessities and we've contributed a little bit to our emergency savings, the rest of our attention should be focused on getting rid of this debt. And there are two major strategies when it comes to paying down credit card debt. There's the snowball method and there's the avalanche method. Each of them has their pros and cons, and mathematically one of them is better than the other, but in all honesty, you should pick the one that works best for you. First is the snowball method, and it's called this because it's meant to feel like you're rolling a big snowball down a hill. This strategy focuses on paying off each of your loans and credit cards based on the lowest balance all the way up to the highest balance. This can be really valuable for a lot of people because once you pay off that first credit card, even if the balance is only a few $100s, it can feel like a big win psychologically. The second method is called the avalanche method, and instead of focusing on the loans and credit cards with the lowest balance, you instead focus on the debt that has the highest interest. Now, mathematically speaking, paying off your debts using the avalanche method will technically save you more money than if you paid them off using the snowball method. But sometimes this can mean making a lot of payments towards a bigger piece of debt, and you don't get those same psychological wins as quickly as if you were paying off your smallest debts first. I personally like the snowball method for paying off debts, but I can totally understand if you're more attracted to the avalanche method because you'll technically save a little bit more money going down that route. And the sixth place our money should go to every time we get paid is into a Roth IRA, which stands for individual retirement account. This is a much more flexible version of the 401k, and the biggest benefit here is any money you put into the Roth IRA and invest over the long term will not be taxed in the future. Currently, the contribution limit for a Roth IRA is $7,000 per year, and if you invest this at around 8% over a 30-year period, then you'll have close to $900,000. And you can contribute to this account in addition to a 401k, which means that including steps 1 through 6, we could be set up for a retirement nest egg with over $2 million, with a good chunk of that being tax-free. Now, there are some limitations with investing in a Roth IRA, and I cover them all in this video here. But if you're interested in learning how to pick the best investments for your 401k so that you can grow your nest egg over the long term, then you'll definitely want to check out this video.